following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Perspectives. My name is David Schoeneman. I'm your host on this program. I'm also the alderman for Ward 3 here in Nashua. On Perspectives, as you know, if you've seen the show over the last few months, you know that we take a look at a variety of issues on the political scene that are important to Nashua residents and taxpayers on a state, local, or a national level. We look at these issues and explain them to you in order to keep you informed of what's happening in your government on all those levels. We want to make sure you're informed and can vote wisely when the time comes every November. Today we're going to take a little break from this strict political scene, and we're going to do something and talk about something that I think is a lot of fun to me personally anyway, and that's aviation, small airplane flying. Right here in Nashua, we have a wonderful general aviation airport known as Boar Field. Boar Field is located on the west side of Route 3 between exits 6 and 7. And I'm sure you've seen airplanes flying in and out of there if you've been anywhere on Sharon Ave or Amherst Street. Today, Boar Field is host to a number of corporate jets. We have quite a number of helicopters and, of course, a wide variety of small general aviation airplanes. Boar Field has been serving Nashua and the local community since 1934 and is an integral part of the Nashua community. A great many pilots have also learned how to fly right here in Nashua and have gone on to some very interesting careers. We have one such pilot on as our guest today. But before we get to that guest, we're going to cut to a short video where you can see our guest here in action in the skies over Nashua. Welcome back to Perspectives. I certainly hope you enjoyed that video that showed our guest, Rob Holland, flying his MXS aircraft in competitions around the country. Rob learned how to fly when back in 1992 when he was enrolled in college at the Daniel Webster College right here at the airport. And he went on to become a flight instructor himself and then an aerobatic pilot. Rob has competed in air shows across the country and internationally. And he, in fact, has won 4 consecutive national championships. And he has received or won 8 gold medals internationally. Rob is one of the best aerobatic pilots in the world, and we're grateful to have him on the show today. Rob, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Well, quite a career. You started out here in Nashua in 1992 as a freshman at Daniel Webster College, learning how to fly. What got you started in aviation? How did that come about? And what took you to the point where you wanted to be an aerobatic pilot?
Well, quite honestly, I can't ever remember a time in my life where I wasn't fascinated with airplanes. I mean, as far back as I can remember. But when I was young, there was an air show that came to town. I lived down near Rhode Island. The Rhode Island Air Show came to town. My dad brought me to it. I saw people flying upside down, and I was bit by the bug.
Wow.
I loved what I saw, and I was on a mission from that point on to learn how to fly aerobatics. So I went to Daniel Webster College, learned how to fly there. Got a little bit of taste of aerobatics through some of the planes that they had and some friends that I met at Warfield. And it's a long story, but eventually figured out how to get it into aerobatics and get paid for it and make it a job, and started teaching aerobatics and then got into air shows, and the rest is history.
That sounds great. I think it's wonderful when someone can do what they like to do. We're all born and gifted with different skills and interests, and a lot of us can do a variety of things, but I think it's best when we can figure out for ourselves what that one thing is. When I was a kid, I grew up in Chicago. My grandfather used to take us to Midway Airport, and we'd sit there in the Chevy watching the airplanes fly overhead coming in and out of Midway Airport, and I loved it. As a kid, I loved it. And I didn't start flying until, actually, it was about 1990. I was a little bit older than you in 1990, but I started flying around the same time down at Hanscom Field, and now, of course, I'm based up here as a flight instructor, too. But it's great when someone can somehow get a taste of a dream and pursue that dream. Work is not supposed to be tedious. There are certainly tedious aspects to any job. You have to practice what you do. You don't just hop on an airplane and go out and be an aerobatic pilot. But so we have to work at these things, but it's an enjoyable work, and if we can find that, that's really great. Did you have any particular people or mentors who helped you in the early days?
It was really interesting for me getting into air shows. I mean, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to get there. So I didn't know really how to find the right air show people to become mentors at the beginning. I had a lot of other pilots that I hung around with, especially at Nashua and also at Hampton Airport out in Hampton. And kind of taught me a lot of good information. But I started off as a flight instructor. I towed banners for a while. I flew corporate for a little bit. I flew commuter airlines for a short stint.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
But all the time, anything I could get my hands on would go upside down, building my aerobatic experience. And then my first actual aerobatic job was flying for a school down in Bedford at Executive Flyers for Mike Goulian. Mike Goulian's also an air show performer. So I taught at his school and basically ran his aerobatic program for a year. And that's when the light bulb went off. You can fly aerobatics and have other people pay for it through instruction. So he actually taught me a lot down there. And with his blessing, I left and started my own aerobatic flight school in Nashua. And one of the airplanes we leased is called a Pit Special, a little biplane. And I made a deal with the owner of that airplane to be able to use it in aerobatic competition and to start getting into air shows. And that's really what kicked it off, to finally get hit the ground running and learn how to entertain the crowd and fly as precisely as possible. And it really snowballed from there.
Now, tell us about some of the maneuvers that we may have seen in the video here. You're upside down a lot. You're falling backwards in some parts of the routine.
Yep.
And we do call it a routine. It's much like an acrobatic or like a gymnastic routine in some sense, because there's a set choreography to it.
Yeah, it's completely choreographed.
Okay.
My job on an air show is to entertain people. So some of it might look a little bit wild and crazy and out of control, but that's the entertainment value. That's the showmanship of it. Got to make control at all times.
Okay.
And I've always approached it that I'm trying to show people something that they've never seen an airplane do before. I try to watch a lot of other air show performers and aerobatic pilots and see what they do, and then I try to not do that and come up with something completely different. So people aren't watching the same thing over and over and over again. And I've always wanted to try to bring aerobatics as a sport to the next level. It kind of plateaus for a while, then there's leaps and bounds, and it plateaus for a while, keeps going. And we've been in this plateau for a while where everyone keeps doing the same thing. So I want to try and invent new things and try to help. I'm not going to do it by myself, but try to help boost it to that next level of evolution.
I understand that some of the competitions that you've won have been freestyle competitions. And freestyle, they just basically tell you you're going to go up next or you're going up tomorrow or whatever, and you have to do these particular things. How does that work?
So in competition, there's basically two categories. There's what we call classical and freestyle. And classical, it's judged actually a lot like figure skating. There's a known program or a compulsory where everyone has to fly the same sequence. It's published at the beginning of the year. You get to practice it. There's a free, not to be confused with the freestyle, where you design your own routine, but there's criteria. This has to be certain figures in it, has to equal a certain number of points. There's an unknown, which you get 12 hours before you fly. You can study it, but you can't practice it. Everyone's flying it for the first time. And the combination of those scores determines the winner. And it's judged actually a lot like figure skating. The freestyle is you get to practice it and come up with your own routine, but it's not quite so, it's not about precision, although there is precision in it. It's more about trying to express yourself, and you can use smoke and music and choreograph it. It's almost like an air show for the judges and trying to really show them things that they just haven't seen before.
And have you invented some new maneuvers that you think other people are going to start incorporating?
I haven't seen every single aerobatic pilot fly out there, though I've seen a lot. So I don't want to say I've invented them, but I've come up with a lot of stuff that I kind of take claim to. But
that's great.
Yep.
What would you say is the most difficult maneuver? Let's say the ones that we saw in the video or the ones that you normally perform. What's the most difficult thing to do, and why is it difficult?
All of them at the beginning are difficult.
Okay.
Because you're trying to figure out how to do them. And the physics behind it, and the aerodynamics, the gyroscopics, and what's happening with the airplane to make it work. But when you actually see it in an air show, it's not hard anymore. Because if it was hard, I wouldn't incorporate it in an air show. It's got to be second nature. It has to work 150% of the time. It always has to have the same results. And until that happens, you don't put it into an air show. So it might look hard and difficult and crazy. And at one time it was, but you practice enough where it's not anymore. And a lot of the stuff you see that I've come up with, it'll be 2-3 years before I actually put it in an air show, just practicing it and studying it and getting all the bugs worked out. And then there's some things that never end up in an air show because you can't get that 110%. It's only 98%.
I fly an airplane that has some aerobatic capabilities, not the same kind of capabilities that your airplane has. We'll talk about your airplane in a moment. But when I'm flying with people or flying by myself, I find that I'm moving the stick very small amount because the plane's responsive. It does what I need to with just small movements. Now, when you fly your maneuvers, are you moving the stick small like that, or are you going stop to stop?
It's all over the place.
All over the place.
Everything in between, yeah.
Tell us about the airplane. How much power does this airplane have? Is it one seat, two seats? What's it made out of?
It's a really cool airplane. It's called MXS. It's designed by MX Aircraft in North Carolina. It's all carbon fiber. It's incredibly light. It's only 1,181 pounds.
Wow.
But it has 385 horsepower.
Wow.
So the power to weight is pretty spectacular.
Right.
And it's really designed for one thing, and that's to do unlimited aerobatics. It has an amazing roll rate. If you push the stick all the way over, you're rolling just shy of 500 degrees a second.
Wow.
And it's incredibly strong. It's rated to plus minus 16 Gs, or times the force of gravity. I'm not rated that, but the airplane is, which gives me a nice margin. We don't have to worry about breaking it.
What's the highest G you would normally pull in an air show?
In an air show, it's about 11 minus 6 or 7. In a competition, it's usually around 12 minus 8.
Do you wear a G suit?
No.
I understand that pilots would black out at about 9 Gs. How do you manage to stay awake in the cockpit?
I mean, a pilot can black out at 4 Gs if he's not prepared for it. So it's all about, one, being in the cockpit and doing a lot and acclimating to the environment. And two, understanding the effect of G-forces on you and how to counteract them. With positive Gs, really kind of tighten your legs, tighten your abs, and squeezing the blood in your head so it doesn't pull out, which makes people black out. Negative G is relaxing, so because all the blood is trying to pool to your head and you want your body to pump it normally. So just understanding what's happening and trying to counteract it.
And what's going to happen next, because you know what's going to happen next.
Exactly.
You're heading to the bottom of a loop or a top of a loop.
It's way easier to be in charge than be along for the ride.
Be along for a ride. Now, you had a chance to fly with some military guys because, of course, you go to these air shows and sometimes the Blue Angels may be flying or Thunderbirds or some demo team from F-35s or something like that. And you had a chance to ride in an F-15, I understand, a few years ago.
I've been very fortunate, very lucky. I got to ride in an F-15 back in 2009, which was absolutely amazing. I've flown with the Blue Angels in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I also flew with the Canadian Snowbirds, another military display team. That was also in 2009.
What is the performance like? Now, of course, we know an F-15 is, you can carry a lot of weight and it can go very fast, certainly faster than most of our propeller airplanes can go. What is the roll rate, the max roll rate on F-15? Any idea?
I don't know what the max roll rate is.
Is it 500 degrees a second?
No.
No, it's not. So you're flying in an airplane that can roll faster than an F-15.
It can. But he carries bombs that weighs more than my airplane. So.
Right.
Yep.
So it's built for a different mission.
It's a totally different. It's impressive, though. It's impressive to push that throttle forward and get pushed back in the seat, and you stay there until you pull the throttle out.
Wow.
It's an amazing machine.
That's really, really something. When you're flying an air show, what's the top speed you would normally reach, and what's the lowest speed you would normally reach?
In my show, I'll dive to about 300 miles an hour. I probably average at the bottom of the figure when I'm going fast, 220, 230 miles an hour. And the slowest I'll go is backwards.
Really? Tell us about that.
There's some figures where you're actually, you stop the airplane, you start sliding it backwards and controlling it to go as far as you can. And you'll get up to 50, 60 miles an hour.
Falling backwards.
Falling backwards.
So you've got full throttle, and you've got big blades on your propeller.
Yep.
So it's creating a lot of thrust, but of course not enough thrust.
Gravity wins.
Gravity wins.
Gravity always wins eventually.
Part of flying an air show, I'm sure, is managing the gravity and managing the energy, basically.
Yeah, it's all energy management, which goes into choreography of the actual show. I mean, every figure you do depends upon the figure before to maintain the energy to get into it.
I see.
So it's that's one of the things I enjoy most about it is it's not the adrenaline rush, it's more the discipline. Putting together, figuring out, trying to do that perfect show. You'll never have a perfect show, but always striving for it and making the puzzle work.
Do you get a chance to meet the folks at the show after you finish a routine?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I love going up and seeing the crowd and meeting the folks and seeing what they thought. And I was inspired by an air show when I was a kid, and if I can inspire somebody else, not necessarily to get into aviation, but just to pursue what they want to do, and go 100%, because then you'll get there, then that's fantastic.
I think a kid going to an air show is seeing things that he never thought were possible.
Exactly.
And if he can begin to have feed his imagination where he asks himself, what can I do that no one thinks is possible? Exactly. That's where dreams are formulated, and it can lead to who knows where. It's amazing.
Exactly. When I got into this, right or wrong, I had a plan A. I never had a plan B. So I looked around, and everybody with a plan B usually falls back on plan B because it's easier. So if all you have is plan A, you have no choice but to make it work. It might take a long time. You might have to sacrifice a lot. You might have to skip doing other things you might want to do along the way. But you'll get there, and it pays off at the end.
You will get there. I've seen that, too, in business environments where they're embarking on some new venture, but they need to have a contingency plan.
Yeah.
And just to make sure everything is okay, they focus a lot of time on that contingency plan. Well, guess what happens?
That's where they go.
That's where they go.
Yep.
In flying or in driving, when people learn how to drive, they say, don't look at the curb because that's where you're going to go. Wherever you're looking, wherever you're focused, I think is where you're going to end up.
Absolutely.
And it's important to focus on plan A. If you do that, it's amazing what can be accomplished.
Yep, definitely.
What does your calendar look like? Here we are in May. What's the rest of summer look like for you?
Incredibly busy. This weekend coming up, I'm going to Latrobe, Pennsylvania for an air show. The day I get back, I'm jumping on an airliner and head to South Africa for a competition that's down there that I got invited to. I come back from that, I end up going to the Rhode Island Air Show. And then
which is where you first went?
That was my first air show as a kid, so it's always special to go back and be a part of that, kind of completing the circle.
Yeah.
And then after that, I have about 15 more air shows. So it's going to be busy. The U.S. National Aerobatic Championships will be the end of September. I'll be going to that again. Try to defend the title.
And then when you're all done with that, you're going to take a little break, head down to the South Pacific again, spend some time with your wife?
Yes. Yeah, she's out in the Marshall Islands for her job, so I'll be heading out there and relaxing in the sun, doing some more scuba diving.
Good. You had the flight school for a while where you were teaching aerobatics right here at Nashua. How did you find that people acclimated to aerobatic flying? Did they come in and have a dream of what it was and then not like it or get the bug?
A lot of people get the bug. I can honestly say that I've never taken anybody flying, especially flying aerobatics, and had them not like it.
Really?
They've always come back with a smile on their face. They've always enjoyed it. Whether they continue to pursue it or they want to go on and do something else, that's a different story. But they've always come back liking it. It's It's how you treat people in the airplane. I'm not out to show them what I can do.
Or scare them.
No, I don't want to do that. I want for them to have a positive experience and come back with a smile on their face. So we only do what they want to do. They want to go up and do a roll, and that's it. That's it. They want to do a lot of crazy stuff, we'll go do that. And so it's really up to the pilot. And when you've done it for a while, you can learn how to read the person and how they're feeling, and if they're not going to last very long, and then you just cut it short so that they come back enjoying it and not sick.
That's the way to do it. As a flight instructor, of course, I'm given all kinds of intro flights, and you try to gauge what a person wants to do, because you're really helping a person fulfill whatever their dream is. They always come in with some kind of a notion of what aviation is or what they want to get out of this particular flight. Yep. And the closer you can perform to their expectations, I think, the better they're going to be.
Absolutely.
So Nashua Airport, of course, has been inspirational to you. You got your degree at Daniel Webster, and Nashua Airport is one of the things that brought me up here. I was based out of Hanscom Airport down in Massachusetts for a while, and things got pretty crazy down there post 9/11, and rates and costs and fuel price and red tape to get in and out of the airport. And I flew up to Nashua a few times, and I thought how wonderful it is up here. And I moved my airplane up here, and then wasn't too long after that I actually moved myself up here, and now I call Nashua home. But Nashua has been a great field. We do a lot of things at the Nashua Airport that are for the community. What are some of those things that are coming up? We have Young Eagles.
Young Eagles are coming up. I believe the B-29 Fifi is coming back into town, which is an amazing piece of history. It's the only B-29 flying right now. Pivotal in the end of the war. There's, I think Air Direct's having their annual poker run coming up.
Okay.
So there's a lot of cool events. Yeah, Nashua's, I mean, it's really a gem in the community. There's some amazing people. There's an awesome culture there. Very friendly pilots and aviation professionals, and very welcoming too. In a great restaurant. You can come.
Great restaurant.
Grab a bite to eat at the Midfield Cafe, sit on the deck, and watch the airplanes fly all day.
Yep, and you can probably meet a lot of people there too. Anyone who wants to come down to Nashua Airport, if they would go to the pilot shop, talk to Keith. Keith has all kinds of information on the various flight schools, a number of flight schools in the field. Sightseeing flights. There's banner tow operation there. If someone wants to say, "I love you, honey," over the beach during the summertime, we can get you fixed up with that. And of course, like you say, the restaurants. You can sit there and watch the planes fly.
Exactly.
What does it take for someone who wants to learn how to fly? How would you encourage someone, young or old, to get started?
It takes the willpower to say, I want to do it. Show up at the airport, find a flight school, talk to them, get some information, find a flight instructor that meshes with you and their teaching style matches your learning style, and just go for it. They'll show you the way and pick the reins and go.
Much like what you described you did
Exactly.
all those years ago. You just started gathering information. You knew that's what you wanted to do.
Yep.
I think that if we apply our will to the things that we want to do,
Exactly.
we're going to reach that goal. Again, aim for the goal, and we're going to get to that goal.
It's just a matter of taking that first step and then keep going, keep stepping.
Are there age limits on flying?
To take lessons, actually, there's not.
Okay.
To solo, there is, and to get your pilot's license, there is. I'm trying to remember what the ages are.
I think it's like 15, or maybe it's 16 and
16
17,
to solo,
16 and
17 to
18,
get your
something like that.
license. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are age limits to actually get your certificates. But to start the learning process, no. You're never too young. You're never too old.
And does a pilot's license expire?
Pilot's license is good forever.
It's good forever.
Yeah.
Of course, we have to stay current and stay proficient.
Yeah. There's a lot of checks and balances to make sure people are safe out there.
Sure.
The physical license, once you have it, you have it.
You have it. Speaking about safe, of course, the work that you do has a certain danger to it. And we just heard about an accident today. I heard about it today that occurred down North Carolina or South Carolina, somewhere down there?
Georgia.
Georgia, okay. A tragic accident. And that's a reality for any aspect of aviation, but certainly for aerobatic flying. How do you prepare for avoiding things that could just someday go wrong?
A lot of it is really checking your ego at the door, and why are you out there flying? What are you doing it for? Are you there to show off? Are you there to, try to? It's really just approaching it the right way and trying to bring a level of discipline into it. I spoke earlier that the only time I put a figure into an air show is once I've practiced enough that it always has the same results. And part of that is having outs. If something's not quite going right, what will it develop into, and what altitude do I need to recover, and making sure I meet those altitudes and airspeeds. Having a plan B, if you don't meet it, what's another figure I can do to get some energy to come back? And then there's plan C, which is you stop, fly away, you turn around, you dive back in. The crowd doesn't know what they're watching.
Right.
So it's all about how you approach it, your discipline into it, maintenance of your airplane. You know, going through it all. My plane's apart right now. Going
I
through
saw
it,
it.
getting it ready for the next air show.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always risk, but it's a matter of mitigating that risk, flying for the right reasons, being disciplined about it, and realizing that the crowd doesn't know what to expect.
Right.
You know, you fly by, they're amazed that it flies. Mm-hmm. So you never have to push it. You know, I try to fly at an air show to like 75, 80% of my ability and the ability of the airplane, just so there's always that cushion, that margin in there.
That's wise. And you're right, there is a risk associated with it. Every time we go flying, there's always a risk, but it's a risk that we manage. It's not a risk that we're going to avoid.
Yep.
Like we said earlier today, we're not going to sit at home on the couch wearing a helmet throughout our life.
Exactly. There's risk crossing the street, but if you
there
look
is.
both ways, you mitigate the risk.
Exactly.
If you don't look and just go, probably going to get hit by a car.
Right. You look both ways.
Exactly.
That's what Mom said.
Yep.
Rob, we're almost out of time here. Anything you want to add about Nashua Airport, about your flying career, or people you want to tell or come to a certain show? Any thoughts that you'd like to share with folks yet?
I've always been excited to be a part of the New Hampshire, the Nashua community. I grew up in Mass, but I moved here when I was 18 for college, fell in love, and just never left. I've been here ever since. I've traveled all over the country and all over the world. I've seen a lot of amazing places. It's always nice to come home. It's always great to be here and call this home, and I wouldn't want to be anyplace else. We've got a great airport. If anyone gets the opportunity to come down and see it, meet the people, see the flight school, eat at the restaurant, go to the pilot shop, come on down. You won't be disappointed. It's a lot of fun.
That sounds great. Thanks for that. Rob was also recently awarded a City of Nashua proclamation by Mayor Donchis last week at the Board of Aldermen meeting, and deserves congratulations for that. And Rob, we're very grateful that you represent Nashua around the country and around the world. When you're in South Africa later this week or later this month, people are going to know that you're from Nashua. And I think that's great. That's great notoriety for Nashua right here in New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you very much for tuning in. I want to thank Rob Holland for coming in and sharing his flying experience and the videos with us today. I hope that you'll tune in again next week, where we'll have another guest to talk more about the political scene once again. My name is David Schoeneman, here with Rob Holland, and I want to thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.